All right, welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Tusig Talks podcast. Today we have another cool and interesting topic that I've done a lot of content on recently, and that is getting lucky and the process of getting lucky, maybe the process of being unlucky. And to start off, I wanted to just give you the definition of luck. So, what is luck? Success or failure apparently brought on by chance rather than through one's own actions. So, when I obviously looked into this topic and looked into luck, um, I wanted to get that definition because I wanted to disprove it. The way it says, apparently brought on by chance. Like I said, I think that's wrong. I think you can create your own luck, and that is the main probably topic of today's episode.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, and one I'm excited to explore because I don't really know how much I don't know how much I agree or disagree with it, because I think in different circumstances you can consider yourself lucky or unlucky, and then if you do consider yourself unlucky or whatever, then I think there's the whole thing of like being able to reframe what bad luck is. And I think that's a really important thing that we're going to talk about now. Um, so yeah, like what in your experience, like how do you find luck to be? Have you encountered have people said you're unlucky or lucky, or has that played in a factor of you figuring out what you think luck is? Um, what's your experience with it, and why are you like writing about it? And I know you've done
Mm.
the newsletter about it too.
It's funny how I my first probably experience of a luck was when I said that I was coming over here, and people said to me like, "Oh, you're so lucky that you got your scholarship." And like on the surface, again, you could say like, yeah, like I was in the right place, right time. I played well in certain games. I could use certain highlights of certain whatever. That's, yes, technically a bit of luck. But then you could go into it and you could say all the years where you were training, when people were going out and you had to stay in because you had a match the next morning, things like that. And like that's not luck, you know, that's hard graft. And in that experience, I kind of realized that, you know, the luck came from all those days and all those hours of me, I don't know, passing against the wall or just eating the right foods because I had a game or whatever. And it was like that was, like I said, the first experience of luck. People from the outside saying you're so lucky. I was like, yeah, you could say that if you want. But for me, I knew that like I put all that work in, so it allowed me to, experience luck when it mattered. I don't know. Have you experienced the same thing when it came to coming over here? Probably have.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And people would say like, "Oh, you're so lucky to be able to do that." I think the way that I see it is, I do count myself extremely lucky, and I'm very grateful to be doing what I'm doing. And what I mean by that is I'm really lucky to have been born into a like a loving family or a
Hmm.
supportive family that was able to help me get to this place. Now, that's where when people say I'm lucky, I try and figure out what do they mean by lucky, because like if they're saying, "Oh, you just got lucky because you got to go to America," then I would absolutely disagree with that, because in my opinion, you create your own luck, and by working hard and being committed and determined to reach a goal, you create your own luck, and opportunities present themselves in front of you. When you work hard, I really do believe that opportunities present themselves in front of you. Now, I do count myself lucky because I was born into a family that was able to help me get to that was able to support me in the aspiring to my goals. So that's extremely lucky, because obviously we don't choose where we're born into. We don't choose who our mother and father are going to be. We don't choose any of that, you know. But insofar as once I had that foundation and that support, I had to work my arse off to try and achieve the things that I wanted to achieve. And I'm not lucky in anything that I've done, in anything that I've achieved in life so far. Maybe there's been a bit of good fortune along the way, but most of the time I've worked to create those opportunities, you know?
Like it's I 100% agree. It's like, of course, we were extremely lucky to be born into a, you know, a family and that supported us, and we had access to education and things like that. I think that's like not really what we're talking about in this episode. I think because again, those things are completely out of your control. You
Mm-hmm.
know, it's like you just said, I didn't choose the family. You know, but I chose to work hard at achieving a goal. So then I got lucky. You know, um, so I think yeah, like of course, there's always people that will say like, oh, like I have nothing, and so that means like I'm poor, and I'm always going to be poor because I couldn't get education. I think there's always going to be people like that, and if that's the mindset, I mean, that you want to adopt, then you probably will stay in the situation that you're in. So we do have to say, like, I am like I agree with you. I am blessed that I was able to, be given and be put in this situation. But again, it did take a lot of work to create that look. And I think another major realization for me was then the last couple of years. So it's like I got lucky, let's say, to get here, and then I got unlucky with all the injuries. So it was like over the past 4 years, realistically, I've only played like one season. Like I was only looking back, like last year, I actually played a lot. Like I had a couple of starts. Um, I had a lot more minutes than usual, and comparison to the 2 years before that, and then this year where I haven't even played a single minute, and I won't play a single minute because of the injury. Some people could say like, "Oh, you've been unlucky there. Like it's just unfortunate that you got all the injuries." It's like, I mean, yeah, like you could say that. You could also say, were the injuries in my control? Uh, Possibly. I think the first two, let's say I wasn't prepared. I wasn't mentally strong enough to deal with an injury, so I was mentally strong enough to recover from the injury correctly. So again, that's kind of my fault. The most recent injury, let's say, the very large man fell right on top of me. So could you say I had control over that situation? Maybe not. I did choose to go play Gaelic, so I chose that. So it's like I'm going around in circles here, but it's like I don't necessarily think that I was unlucky the last couple of years, because you mentioned at the very start reframing the unluckiness, uh, and I really think that's so important. Is being able to adopt a kind of like growth mindset, let's say, and say, yeah, maybe I'm going through a shit spell here and I'm being unlucky here, but it's actually for the best, you know.
Yeah, I like the way you talk about that. I was on a trip once, and like a tennis trip, and I was a coach on the trip, and this is last summer, no, summer before last, and we brought a few juniors to play a few tennis tournaments, and the head coach that was running it, and one of my close friends, kind of said to me just in passing, but was serious about it before the kind of end of the first matches. He was like, whatever you do after, when you're trying to console a player that's lost or whatever, just make sure that you're not saying like unlucky. Like, don't tell them that it unlucky, because I think that's a natural thing. Like after a match, for me anyway, like if I'm that'd be my natural kind of thing to say to a friend that's just lost, being, oh, unlucky mate, like that was tough out there, like hard luck. But he would have said, and he would have been an advocate for, like, don't say it unlucky. There was nothing with luck that had to do with it. Like the luck had nothing to play in with the person losing or winning that match. and the things that were in their control that they could have controlled, they didn't do well enough, you know. And so it was nothing to do with, you don't lose a match on 99% of the time. You don't lose a match based on luck. So there's nothing unlucky about losing a tennis match, you know. And I think being able to realize that, I think that has a lot to do. I suppose, I don't know, whatever, I want to hear what you think, but I suppose that has a lot to do with being able to have like a good level of accountability, being able to take accountability for your actions and being like, no, that was on me. That was nothing to do with luck. That wasn't nothing to do with the universe deciding whether or not I was going to win. You know, that was me. I'm taking ownership over that, and hence it wasn't unlucky. And I think that's the reframing that we need to be able to do in taking ownership for your actions. And with that, I don't know. I think it's better for growth. That's for me anyway, because I think you're then more focused on what you can do better the next time in order to try and change the result.
I feel like we spoke about this recently. Was it like taking accountability for our actions? And I actually
Yeah.
think we had somewhat different views on it. You know, I think I talked about you need to take responsibility for everything, and I think you said something like you can't blame yourself or something like that. I think that's what it was, and it definitely, like, again, just the whole point of this podcast is that we can share opposing views and then learn from it. And I definitely are kind of leaning more towards what you were saying now, about like blaming yourself, and it's not good to blame yourself. But every now and again, if you do make a mistake or you do get unlucky, for example, realize that like it was me, you know, and taking control of your own life. I think so many people just let their life pass them by and let other people control like their life. They let other people control their feelings and their emotions. And when someone else has control over your life, like how shit your life is going to be, it's unbelievable. Because at the end of the day, it's your life. It's the exact same with like opinions of other people, and like I said, the thoughts of other people impacting your emotions and impacting your ability to get lucky. It's sad, and I think, yeah, sometimes I feel like, I don't know, people like getting unlucky. Maybe that's a bit extreme, but I think some people like the feeling of everyone putting their arm around their shoulder and saying, "Oh, you're okay," like just unlucky, you know. And it's almost like comforting in some sense. I don't know.
Or
What do you think
like
about
a
that?
victim complex, or what do you mean by that?
Yeah, yeah. I think it almost is like you're acting like a victim. You know, you're
Mm-hmm.
acting like, oh, everyone come consolidate me. I just got unlucky. You know, um, because again, there's no accountability there. There's no ownership there. Um,
Where does that come from? Like, why do you think? Like, what's the soothing feeling of a victim complex? Like, what is
yeah,
it? What's it putting a plaster over?
Jesus, I feel like you could go deep, deep, deep with that. Like you could go into like childhood relationships and things
Mm,
like that. You know, if let's say you were never consolidated as a child,
yeah.
you may require it from people in later life, things like that. It's fascinating. I mean, it's really deep. I feel like, um, but maybe the question is, how do you get out of that victim complex? You know, what do you think?
Yeah, no idea. I have absolutely no idea how you get out of that. I
Do
don't
your
know.
psychology degree and you might find out.
Yeah, yeah. Come back to me in about 3 years, mate. Yeah, I really don't know, and I think that is one of the most important things that we need to be able to do in our life, is that if we've gone through things that have, um, not to take us off track here, but like if we've gone through things as a child, I think the ability to heal that inner child, or like do the things to work on yourself and heal that inner child, is so important. Because otherwise, if you don't do that, like you're gonna struggle throughout life. And I don't like those things do not go away. Those things will stick with you forever. How do you go about Yeah. How do you go about fixing childhood trauma of potentially not getting validation or not feeling loved or whatever as a child, or maybe you were lacked, you were there was a lack of attention given to you as a child, and now you feel as if you need to be soothed by that arm around you, and that's why you put yourself in victim complexes. I don't know at
It's a
all.
rabbit hole, isn't it?
Yeah. But I think what I think you and I can have a conversation about is, what I would say is, if you feel as if you're in a rut or you're in a bad place, in a bad mental state, insofar as like you're just feeling a bit run down or whatever, or maybe you've lost a soccer match or a tennis match or something, I think it's like, Dara and I aren't saying that you need to, as soon as you lose it, be like, right, that was all my fault, let's get better the next time. Like, I think it's really important to be able to, like, you have to feel those negative feelings. It's really important to, yeah, you sit with them for, give yourself a period of time, 28, 48 hours or whatever, however long it might be. But I think the most important part is then that distinction in being able to say, okay, I've had my time to process these emotions, feel shit, I've figured out where they're coming from, why I'm feeling this way. Now let's put in a plan, and let's put in a call to action to try and actually get out of this rut, or get out of this kind of pit that I'm in now, you know? I think that's what sometimes people struggle with, is that they sit with those emotions for too long. And I think having the ability to say, no, fuck that. I deserve to feel better than this. I'm going to do this, and this, and this to start feeling better, you know? And I think
Yeah.
a lot of people nowadays are guilty of just sitting in that pit for far too long.
Do you think maybe they're a little unconscious to the fact they're sitting in their
Yeah.
kind
Yeah,
of
100%.
hole in a sense?
I think self-awareness is one of the most underrated tools that we can have in life. And I think not many people, I'd say very few people our age, and then few people as they get older, are actually quite self-aware in themselves and understand the feelings that they're feeling. That's a hard thing to do. Some people are naturally built to be like that, but I'd say it's a minority. Um, and that's, we've talked about that before. That was one of the first things we talked about on the podcast, was increasing your self-awareness, because it helps you out of pits like this. You know, that's the thing that ultimately is going to get you out of a rut or a bad mental state, is understanding how you're feeling.
Hmm. It is. It's interesting because again, I think the first step to maybe getting lucky is like understanding that maybe you are unlucky. Like it's maybe a bit wishy washy, but like it's like being self aware, saying to yourself like, "Oh, I've actually gone through an unlucky spell. How can I change that?" I think that's the first step, because I think there's so many people that are just like going about their lives, and maybe they're just continuously in that rut, and maybe they see other people and they get jealous of other people who are happy and living there. And I'm saying this from experience, honestly.
Yeah, yeah,
uh like you see other people who are happy and enjoying themselves, and they get lucky. You know, you see your friends out doing the things that you'd want to be doing, um and then you can, let's say, take the blame onto yourself and say, "Oh, I've just been so unlucky and I can't get out of this rut." But like being able to stop yourself and being able to say, "Okay, it is what it is. Like I've experienced this spell of pain, of hurt, of whatever, unluckiness, let's say. How can I get out of it?" It's almost like that one question, like how can I change, is so so important. And that genuinely was like the catalyst for me for change, was just that question.
hmm
I'm not happy now. How can I be happy? And then I feel like just the light bulb goes off in your brain. That happened
yeah,
to me about, it's coming up on like 3 years ago now. It's mad.
yeah. I think one of the most important things is like you're saying there, it's almost like taking ownership for your own success and your own happiness
Mm.
and your own health. I think if people are constantly waiting around for something external to come and fix their internal battles, maybe they are unlucky. Let's give it to them.
Yeah.
Maybe that person is unlucky. Maybe that person has come up against several unlucky events, and they're just in the pits, and it's all unlucky. Okay, that maybe that's true. But what's stopping you from being the first person to evoke change within yourself? If you're waiting for some external source or another person to come and fix your problems, you're going to be waiting around for the rest of your life. You have to be the first person to drive that change. Because if you're not going to stick at wanting to fix yourself. If the motivation is coming from within and you're like, okay, no, I want to fix this. I want to get better within myself. I want to get out of this rut, whatever it is. I want to fix my own bad luck. It has to come from you. You know,
Mm.
that has to be the most important driver in that. Because otherwise I think you're and maybe taking ownership and being and figuring out, asking yourself, like you said, asking yourself, how can I fix this? How can I do this? Maybe that involves ringing a therapist, or maybe that involves bringing in more people, but it has to, and that's okay, but it has to come from within. I think I really, I don't see how it can be any other
Mm.
way.
Do you think maybe there are certain situations or drivers that can lead you to that moment? Because for me, and I should probably let you answer the question first, but for me, it was almost like you're at the bottom of the pit, which drove the change. You know, you've been extremely unlucky. You've hit rock bottom, and it was that period where I was like, okay, like something needs to happen here. You know,
Yeah, you just answered your own question there, basically.
sorry.
No, that's okay. That's exactly that's how I would see the answer is, and this is why it's hard sometimes seeing the people close to you going through a rough patch,
Mm,
because, like I said, change can only come from them, and it can only be them that want to change, and sometimes it takes, and so let's say in the terms of self-worth or self-esteem, sometimes it has to get to a place where the feelings are so shit and so painful that you're taking these beatings day after day, month after month, and until the person turns around and is like, what is going on? Like, I cannot take this anymore. I don't deserve this. I do not deserve to feel this way. That's the first point at which the the change starts. And it's unfortunate because sometimes it has to be, the pain hurts so bad, the feelings are so shit that you just can't take it anymore. Which is, and that's a hard thing. And sometimes it's easier within yourself to go through that than actually seeing, because it's so hard seeing people you love
mm,
with low self-esteem or low self-worth have to go to the pits to be able to be like, no, I don't deserve this feeling anymore. But I really do think that sometimes it's the only way that people can actually spark change for themselves, because they're like,
yeah.
I won't be around for much longer if this keeps going, or if I keep feeling these feelings. I have to start feeling better for myself, and I have to start working on myself, and then ultimately by doing that, you're taking ownership for your own actions, and working towards feeling better.
Mm. How do we, like, let's say, for example, let's say there's someone again who we see, a friend or whatever, and you can see they're on the path to this, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to say like how do we speed it up? Like how do we, because again, we literally just said it's only them that can drive the change. But what I'm asking is kind of like, are there any are there any things that we can say to them that maybe open their eyes a little quicker, or do you think maybe they have to just fucking go through it? Like,
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know.
yeah,
I think the most powerful tool that person will be able to use on their journey of getting better is relating back to the pits that they got in. So every time they're being like, oh, I don't want to keep working on myself, or whatever, they can relate back to that visceral feeling within themselves that they felt at the time of them being
mm,
at the very, very lowest. That's a really powerful feeling to go back to work as a motivator to helping us continue on our journey. so as shit as it is for that person and our friend, it's acting as a really powerful source of
Yeah,
energy to continue their journey. And so, yeah, can you help a person around you try and see for themselves that it has to get worse before it gets better? Maybe that's all you can do. Maybe all you can do is hold your mate's hand while you're going to the while they're going to the
yeah,
bottom of the pits before they can start climbing out of it again. I really don't know, and I don't know. I don't know. Are you? Don't know if this is completely psycho, but are you doing your mate a disservice if you're
yeah.
not letting them get to that point? I don't know. Uh, yeah, that's
I
something.
get where you come from. I definitely get where that's kind of why I wanted to ask the question. It's like it's more so. I feel like it's like a curve, and the curve is flat, let's say, and then it dips down. You're
Yeah.
at the lowest point, and it's at the lowest point when you wake up, and then it's that journey that you go on to come back up. I
Mm,
feel like the coming back up, you can help them because you've gone through it, you've experienced it, but you're both kind of conscious, you're both awake.
mm-hmm.
But it's that downslope is the problem. It's like
Yeah.
because they're not conscious yet, they're not awake yet. It's like
Yeah.
almost yeah, it's so bad. You have to let them
Yeah.
fucking fall in, and I think there's a point because again, like you don't want to like self harm and mad shit like
Mm-hmm.
that, but
Yeah. Yeah.
like
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
there is a point where they just have to. I don't know. This we didn't mean to get into this deep
No.
shit for this episode.
No, but I think it's
Yeah.
look, and I think this could be a snowball of like the stuff that we're talking about now. That could be a snowball effect of people continuously saying that they're getting unlucky and be like just being a victim of bad luck and stuff and taking this victim mindset, you know. But I honestly, yeah, that would probably be what I think. I haven't thought about it before this, but
Mm,
I think maybe the only thing you can do is hold your friend's hand, and by doing that, what I mean by that is like you're offering support. You're saying you're there for a chat or event, or you're just an open pair of ears, or you're just with them. You know,
mm,
you're with them.
mm.
You're not actively trying to fix them, because this it has to be them that's fixing themselves. But you're there as a
Yeah,
support. And then when they've had that, when they've been in the pits and they've been like, no, okay, I want to change. I want to be different. I want to help myself. I want to get better, etc., etc. Then you can start helping them with things being like,
yeah.
all right, let's I don't know, let's go
Go
out
for a
on a
swim
jog,
or
or let's go
yeah,
for a swim, or let's go for
yeah.
a coffee and a chat every week or something like that, you know. Um,
Mm,
yeah, but sometimes maybe it is now. Maybe you and I, maybe we're completely wrong. Maybe there are actually things
yeah,
that you can do to help a person. Maybe and maybe this is the job of a therapist or someone that is actually qualified in something like this, whereas 22-year-old lads just having a little waffle on a podcast on a Saturday afternoon are completely useless. But maybe it's a case of what a qualified person could do is help the person see where they are, help
mm,
them see where they're potentially going, aka the pits, before actually getting them there. And then maybe that is enough energy to be like, oh God, I don't want to get that bad. I don't want to get to the place where I really, really am way worse than I am now.
yeah,
Maybe helping that person unlock a bit of self awareness or consciousness to what potentially could be,
yeah,
to then spark that change. Maybe that's what a person could do, but I mean, that's way beyond my pay grade and
yeah,
probably yours too, I guess.
yeah. It's hard again because you do see like I mean you do see people going on that path,
Mm,
especially when you're like I'm not saying we're any better than anyone else. I'm just saying that we've experienced a really low period in our life and have come out of it better on the other side. And again, I'm extremely grateful for all the shit that happened. And I think again that's a reframe moment that's important. But like it's almost like again, maybe you just need to help them become conscious of where they're at that moment of
mm,
time. Don't try help them up or don't try help them down.
yeah,
Literally just say like, become conscious where they're at.
yeah.
Um and again, it's really hard. Like I mean, like I said, I feel like a therapist though, like and the thing is with therapy, um you only go to a therapist when you're sick. you know.
Yeah, but I don't think that's the right way to look. I think that's a
And I
result of.
agree.
Okay, yeah, sorry, you keep
I
going.
I
You
I
can
I
go.
completely
Yeah,
agree.
go.
You only go to a therapist when someone says, "Yeah, you should probably go to a therapist," you know. And I think like and a therapist almost is just tell me your story,
Mm.
you know, tell me all the bad things that have happened in your life. And fuck me, if I told that same story, we, we actually do tell the same story every week. But if I told like the fucking deep personal story every single week, I would just live in that story, and I would
Mm.
live and sometimes the therapist doesn't really guide you. Well, for the therapists that I've seen, they don't really help you out of the situation. It's kind of just, okay, just vent to me, like just tell me all your problems.
Yeah.
And that's where like life coaching is different. Like being able to navigate, like having someone that's going to be able to give you the skills to navigate these hard times is, I feel like, more beneficial than just going and venting to someone. And
Yeah.
and and that's why sometimes when a friend comes to you and you don't maybe know the way out, it's hard to give them advice. And maybe
Hmm.
because that's important, because maybe it's not advice that they need. Maybe they just need to be able to see where they're at. Um, but I think that therapy or life coaching is probably better in my opinion. But I think we need to maybe fucking decrease the shame and going and seeing someone like that, because again, you go to the doctor, you only go to the doctor when you're sick. But what
Mm.
if you could go to the doctor to not get sick? Um, and like I said, if you can go to someone and speak to someone and get them to guide you and navigate you through the hard times, I think that is a lot more beneficial than just going and letting rip on a punching bag, you know?
Yeah, I think you're right, and I think with the therapy thing, like you relate it to, I mean, the the brain's an organ. We go to the gym and we try and help ourselves get fit in the gym with our muscles and cardiovascular system, whatever, because we want to be healthy. Why don't we do the same thing with our brain? I know that's very cliche nowadays, but it's the same sort of thing. And there's still a stigma around going to therapy or saying that you're going to therapy or going for a chat. Um, and that's the ultimate reason as to why I wanted to get involved with this podcast, is to spark conversation. And sometimes maybe it
And
starts with you
I'm
and
your
just your mate.
therapist.
Yeah, maybe it just starts with you and your mate having a chat, and then you start being like, okay, I really like that chat with my mate, but I didn't really get the answers that I wanted from my mate, and now I'd like to go to someone who's maybe more qualified and can probably help me through this. And potentially, I think there's that people might have a false idea of what therapy actually is. It's not, doesn't have to be you going down sitting on one of them curvy little sofas with your head up and you're looking at stars and you're saying, "Oh, this is this." It doesn't have. It can be like that, but it doesn't have to
Yeah.
be. And what I found, I think potentially what the difference now, I could potentially be really wrong here, and I'm sure that there's two people in particular that I'm sure will tell me that I'm wrong if I get this wrong. But what I kind of find life coaching to be, and the difference between that and like regular therapy, I kind of sometimes feel like life coaching takes on the hands of cognitive behavioral therapy a little bit more. So
Mm.
CBT, it's a form of therapy that's not typically the normal if you go to a regular therapist type way. There's many different types of therapy, but CBT kind of helps you prepare the tools within your brain to be able to, well, first it helps you become conscious of what you're going through and why you're going through it. And then the extension of that is learning the tools to then get over that. And then when things come around and they continue to present themselves for the rest of your life, you're like, okay, I understand what's going on here. I know I'm feeling this. And I also know the tools how to decrease these feelings. That's what I think cognitive behavioral therapy does is really well. Is like if you and I are having a conversation, oftentimes the therapist will just be like, they're not telling you what's wrong with you, or they're not saying much. They're just being like, why?
Yeah.
And where do you think
Yeah,
this comes
that's all they
from?
say, innit? Just
And
why,
what
why,
and why
why?
and et cetera, et cetera. So with cognitive behavioral therapy, it's you doing the work. Like you're the
Yeah.
one figuring all this out. The therapist is just sitting there being asking you leading questions, and of course they might have an idea of what's going on, but ultimately, if you want to really help yourself, and a really good therapist or a really good life coach is going to be someone that helps you figure out what is wrong with you, and
Mm.
not what's wrong with you. It doesn't, and I think that's another thing that we're constantly saying that something's wrong with us. It's all right if people go through shit in life, people have bad times and stuff like that. It doesn't mean anything's wrong with you, but having the ability to figure that out by yourself, and then once you do that, it's much more beneficial, because then you have that kind of weaponry of tools that you can use for the rest of your life to get over those challenges if and when they present themselves again.
I've heard great things about CBT,
Mm-hmm.
in terms of like obviously mental health issues, but also in terms of like autoimmune disease and stuff like that. Because I know when you experience like an autoimmune disease, I don't know, let's say like colitis or eczema or something like that. Yes, obviously, like internally and physically, it can be painful or itchy or whatever. But it's also like there's the psychological side to an autoimmune disease. So let's say eczema, like obviously it's on your skin, like you're, anxious about other people's opinions of your skin, and like all those things can just play in your head. And I've heard really good things about CBT, because like you said, it gives you the tools to like not build up a wall, but be able to navigate a situation like that, you know. Um, and like I have a coach, and I wouldn't say it's like CBT, but again, it's kind of more so you just you figure it out yourself,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel like the answers are always you have all the answers. You maybe just need someone to like push and probe you in
Yeah.
certain areas to like get the answers up, and then when you say the answer, it's almost like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
instead of them just telling you like this is wrong to you, you're sick, you're this, that, whatever, you're just like, and this happened, and then it's like, oh, but this happened because I done this,
Yeah.
and you telling yourself that again, it's almost like this accountability thing to tie it up with a bow. It's like you're telling yourself, and you're understanding, and you're realizing the mistakes or the things that you done that caused this unluckiness or this spell of unhappiness. And like I think it's so important to note, like you just said earlier, like life is gonna be shit sometimes. Like there's gonna be ups and downs. I found this word, and it's cyclical. So like a cycle, life is cyclical, and it's
Mm-hmm.
like that's how it works. Like I said, there was if I look at it from a higher level point of view for over the last, let's say, 4 years, and I'm just using football as an example here because of how much it impacted my life. But yes, you could say unlucky because I didn't play a lot of football. But throughout that 4 year spell, there was lots of times where, maybe I was a little happy, or maybe there was experiences that I will never forget. That there's people that I would have never met if I never had taken the chance to come over here. There's there was so much that went on, so much information and like formative times that I experienced, that there's no way that you could say that this experience was unlucky.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like yes, it's annoying I didn't play football, but like I said, I've learned so much about myself, learned so much about the world just from this experience and this spell of unluckiness, that there's no way I can actually say that it was bad, you know? And again, this may, if you're listening to this, like it may come across like we've figured it all out. There's no fucking way we figured it all out. But this is like, for me, this is like, was one of the biggest things. And I think, like, obviously my parents listen to this or whatever, but like, they were worried about me when I got injured this time. They were like, oh, like, you're not playing and blah, blah, blah. And I remember I spoke to my coach a couple of times, and like, I was fresh. Like, I was fine. There was a few times where I was upset or whatever, and maybe sometimes when they told me that I was done and all that shit, like whatever. But my mind completely changed. It was like well, fuck, well, now I have more time to do Tussig stuff. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
instead of me saying, oh, what a waste, da, 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 I was like, well, I've just more time to do other stuff. And again, it was that complete change. But again, I had to go through that whole spell to get to that point. Um, and again, I hope if you're listening to this, maybe you've listened to all of the episodes and you kind of have an understanding of what it takes to get to where we are. Because, like I said, we're not like these fucking gods, Messiah, whatever. We're just chatting from our experience. And I love this podcast because if I want, I can go back to episode 1 of whenever it was, March 2024, and understand how I was thinking at that time. And if someone is just starting from the very start, they can do that too. They don't have to start at episode 21. They can start at episode 1 when both of us were figuring this shit out. And I think that's the beauty in what we're doing. You know, hopefully there's some people that are actually listening that are actually, taking all this stuff on board, because I'm definitely learning. And I think I've learned so much across the last year that there's like so many lessons. I feel like there's so many lessons that we could tell and that we've shown that, I don't know, it's just been such a fucking fun ride,
Yeah.
And I
Do
think
you think
again that's another mindset shift.
yeah, do you think you would have had like this mindset that you're currently on now, what you were just talking there a little bit ago, kind of about that, the difference in this injury compared to other injuries, kind of almost a bit of you've taken responsibility and ownership and whatnot. Do you think you would have had that had you come up with an injury like that prior to your enlightenment, um, on that kind of New Year's, and that when that kind of, for me, that's kind of, you can tell me if I'm wrong, but for me that's kind of the start of your journey, kind of that enlightenment area, like around New
Mm-hmm.
Year's a couple of years ago.
Mm-hmm.
If you had an injury like before that, do you think you would have had that mindset shift, or would you think you would have had that same mindset then, or is it a result of speaking to a coach and working on yourself and beginning that journey that you now have this mindset?
Yeah, like the question is a statement as well. The reason I had that moment was because of the injury that I had at
Mm.
the time, and I wasn't able to deal with it. You know,
Mm.
it was like, this is the end of the world. This, I'm not going to play pro and all that stuff. It's like that was that was the pits. And
Mm.
like you said, over the last couple of years, I've learned how to deal with my emotions. I've become self aware, like working with the coach and stuff like that. And because of all that, then I'm able to deal with a setback now. And I was literally, it's funny, I was reading a book last night, and a quote kind of like stood out to me. Sometimes a quote like stands out to you, proper nerd, like. But hold on, I just want to get it right.
Mm.
Um, so each setback is a persistence test. So obviously, if you want to be kind of successful, let's say whatever that is, but if you want to just live a good life or live an enjoyable life, or in my case, build a business and stuff like that, each setback has been thrown to you and has been put in front of you, basically to ask you the question, like, can you keep going if or after you've got knocked down? And that stood out to me last night because, again, it's like, your life is going to pass you by. Like, your life is going to happen whether you have setbacks or not. So you may as well use the setbacks as like an opportunity for growth, an opportunity for something else, because they're actually just going to be stories to tell only if you make the most out of those setbacks, you know? Because if your life is just full of setbacks, your life is full of unluckiness, no one wants to fucking hear your story. Like, sorry, but if someone is always a Debbie Downer and just always talking about how they're sad and they're upset, and if you've tried as a friend, if you've tried to help them, and you're on this enlightenment journey and you're on this, like I said, journey to whatever, but you're working on yourself. If you have someone that's like draining energy from you, it's very, very hard to to do that. And if you could recognize that in yourself, that if you're someone who's constantly dragging people down because of the negative energy that you're giving off, it's it's very, very hard as a friend to stay with that when you're on like a journey. You know what I mean? Um, I kind of lost my train of thought there just because I'm kind of passionate about this. Just because like
Yeah.
sometimes you know you can go on this journey and you can have setbacks and you can, like I said, use them as an opportunity for growth. Like I'm using this period of time as an opportunity to build the fucking structure of what I want to build for the next 50 years. Where if I came on here and if our podcast was just like a therapy session and all we done was talk about our issues,
Hmm.
no one would listen, you know? And I feel like that can be the same with a friend, or that can be the same with someone in your life who is constantly just has this negative energy within them and is like just always talking about their issues. Like go out and succeed, go out and try something, and I think it's hard. It's very harsh. Like I'm actually being a bit forward and a bit harsh here. Like, but I think sometimes maybe people need to hear that, because when you're on a journey, when you're on this road to whatever you want, because again, it's not success or it's not happiness or any of that shit. It's just like a journey that you go on until the fucking deathbed. If you're sitting there at the deathbed and you're like still talking about the ex that broke your heart, like Jesus Christ, man, you've had a shit life. Where if you're on the deathbed and you're talking about all the stories of how you failed and then you got back up on the horse and you done this and then you done this and then this happened and I fell back down. That's one. That's a much more of an interesting story, and two, you're just going to live a better life. Um, and that's the journey that I want to go on. I want to just fucking try things and fail, because I'm not afraid to fail. I'm not afraid to put myself out there and tell the world that I'm doing this thing and then fail and fuck, like it is what it is. I don't give a rat's, because it's just going to be a cool story when I do succeed. You know, maybe that's me just being a bit of a fucking big head, but like that's how I feel about unluckiness. It's like fucking go out and do something. Stop talking. Just fucking do it.
Mm, mm. Yeah, and I think the most important part of that is the framing and like how you see your own story and how conscious you are of how you see that story and being able to change how you see it, and
Mm-hmm.
um, having the ability to change that and then make active plans to go out and change it. And yeah, but I think that's the key to success, and which can be a hard thing for people to go and do if they've lived a life of 20, 30, 40, 50 years of doing the exact opposite. So I think we are lucky in a sense that, like you said, by no means we are where either of us want to be for the rest of our life. Like we are I'm only at the starting line, I would say, of my
Mm-hmm.
self journey and what I want to do and work on myself and all of that. Um, but for people that have lived, I'd say most people go on that journey and live 20, 30, 40, 50 years without asking themselves these questions. So I
Mm-hmm.
think we're fortunate to be able to be asking ourselves these questions at such a young age, because
We're
if
lucky.
and when we do kind of get through and come out the other side of all this, like we'll be in a much better place to then go and, like you say, go and try things and go and be courageous and fearless and go and
Mm-hmm.
just dive headfirst into things, because ultimately that's the best thing that we can do. I think it's harder. It's definitely hard for a lot of people, and I think to be able to say that, like, you're fearless and courageous and stuff, and that's a wonderful place to be in.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think a hard place for people that might be, yeah, just kind of ingrained in their own mind and like not aware of themselves and their own thoughts and stuff like that. I'd say for a lot of people it can be hard to switch, like flip
Mm-hmm.
that switch, and begin to reframing all that stuff.
And I don't think that switch happens overnight.
No.
Like I like again, I talk about that enlightenment New Year's Eve kind of situation, and in fairness, it does seem like it was just this fucking poof, like, wow, I'm awake now, like.
Hmm.
But it took years and years and years of failures and successes and emotions to understand that, and get to that point. And I think if someone listens to this and they I don't want to say disagree, but they're like, no, that's wrong. I can't. I'm always just going to be unlucky, and that's just the way it is. Like, you're kind of starting 10 years behind, you know, just because I feel like to the first step is not even having that, like, wake up moment. It's almost like saying that, oh, maybe it is possible to live a life that I enjoy. And I think you're right in the sense that 40 years of ingrained, you know, emotions and ingrained feelings. And it's very rich, us telling a 40-year-old how to live. But again, it's like, I still don't, they obviously have, like, constraints and stuff like that. That's fair. But, like, still, I feel like there's opportunity for risk, and risk is not dropping everything and moving to fucking Thailand. It's like, I don't know, going for a swim every morning, or like the risk of not drinking alcohol every night a week or every Saturday. That's a risk because you might lose friends. But if you are willing to go on that journey, or if you're not willing to risk those, you're you're not gonna go on a journey. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it's with that. I think it's just trying to challenge yourself to do things continuously that are outside your comfort zone.
Mm,
And for me, that's the only place I've ever found that I will grow. I really don't think I'll do much growing if it's not outside my comfort zone. Like, I don't think there's much for me to achieve within that comfort bubble. Um, and I think, yeah, I suppose I don't know. I suppose a lot of people might think that at from age 40 plus, it's you're done, you're signed, sealed, delivered. Like, that's the way you're going to be for the rest of your life. But I would like to think that it doesn't have to be that way. I'd like to think that when I'm 40, 50, 60, I'm still doing things that are outside my comfort zone, still
yeah.
continuing to grow, still breaking down boundaries and stuff. And I, I, yeah, I'll look back on this podcast in whatever
Maybe
30,
we're still
40 years
doing it, lad.
time and see if with whatever family, wife, 3 kids, whatever, paying a
The
mortgage, like
dog, the
if I
white
actually
picket
find,
fence.
yeah, if I actually find myself still doing those things.
Mm,
So yeah, perhaps it is a bit rich, but I would like to be the optimist and say that because of how early I've started on this journey and kind of continuation of increasing my self awareness and emotional intelligence and whatnot, I would like to think that I still have the drive and motivation to get outside my comfort zone when I'm when I'm that age. I feel
do
like
you
this
think,
podcast.
like, do you think because you've almost developed the self awareness now, it'll be impossible to, like, not do it? You know what I mean? Like, you're almost like, the secret, you know, the
Yeah,
magic
yeah,
pill. You've
definitely.
taken the magic pill.
Yeah, and that's not to say like you said, life is cyclical. There will absolutely be times in the future where I just don't have the means to continuously challenge myself outside
Yeah.
my comfort zone. It'll get to a point where, like, I'm not gonna be able to do that every day, or maybe there might be a period of 6 months where someone gets sick and I have to look after them, or
Mm,
life shit happens. But I'm happy in a sense that I've begun this journey now, that I know what's on the other side of the rainbow. Like, I know what good is gotten from doing things such as this, and I love that feeling. I
yeah.
love setting myself crazy goals and achieving things that I didn't think I'd be able to achieve. I know that I know that I'm able to look fear in head on and just run towards it. I know I'm able to do that, despite how scary it might seem. I'm not fearless. It does scare me a lot, like the fear of failure and stuff like that. But I know I'm strong enough to continue going after those goals, and I know what a euphoric feeling it is to beat that. And
Hmm.
I want to continue that for the rest of my life, absolutely, because I felt it, and I felt how good
Yeah.
it feels. And I know, I equally know that when you do fail, it's never that bad. The sun will still go around. We're still gonna get up the next. There's always gonna be a next morning. Um, I've seen both sides of the field, and I know how good it feels when you succeed on things that you want to when
Mm.
you want to achieve, and I also understand how important it is to frame things in as much as you can in a positive way, or in ways that you can see opportunity for growth. And I know how dangerous it is when you don't frame things in the right way, and you get stuck in a mindset of framing things in a victim complex, or in a everyone's out to get me type way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I've seen myself in all of those scenarios, and I know which ones get the most out of me, and I know which I enjoy the most, and I'm just going to go pursue them for the rest of my life, in whatever they might look at, in whatever way they might look, and that'll change over time. For the next 10, 15 years, it'll be me, whatever, pursuing a master's, or an education, or a good job, or doing things in whatever field I go down. And then the next stage of life, it'll be me challenging myself to be the best dad I can be. I don't know, like
Don't
trying
get the
to,
dad bod.
yeah, yeah. I can still try and get outside my comfort zone in trying to be a better dad every day.
Yeah.
That's I'm not talking about like for the next 50 years I'm going to be trying to create Fortune
Run a
500
marathon every
companies
day.
all the
Yeah.
time. Like this thing will change, but I just know that when I'm doing things that are uncomfortable and I grow from them and I succeed, that's the stuff that I want to pursue for the rest of my life.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. It's very, again, I feel like maybe I was a bit harsh in this episode, but it comes from like I'm telling myself 3 years ago all this information, and that's
Yeah,
a lot of the stuff that I write about, a lot of the content that I create is all telling my 20 year old self the stuff that I wish he knew. So if it's coming across a bit harsh, maybe this podcast isn't for you. But I think a key reframe is that like you always are luckier than you think.
100%.
And I think, maybe you had a shit day at work. Maybe I don't know, your friend pissed you off or something like that. In the micro, that could be shit. Like that could be the worst day ever. But I really thought about this when I was writing the last newsletter. I was like, well, fuck, we actually are a lot luckier than we think. We have a roof over our head. We have a phone that we could text the whole fucking world if we wanted to. We have food every day. You have a job. Like you might have a car. Like all these things are extremely lucky for us to have because there's so many people that fucking don't have them. You know, um, and the main one that I want to harp on is like you woke up this morning. That is the luckiest thing that you can ever experience is that you woke up this morning because think about how many people didn't and how many lives that will impact if you didn't wake up. It's like that's the end of it all, you know. So I think every morning when you wake up, it's almost like you get a fresh start of luck. I've already started my day with luck because I fucking opened my eyes this morning. And like again, maybe that's like the one reframe that you need. It's like I'm not unlucky. I just maybe there's just bad times, this and that. But I woke up this morning. I have food in my cupboard. I have a car that I can drive to my job. It's like fuck, man. Maybe you aren't so unlucky.
yeah. No, I love that. I think if anyone takes anything from this podcast, it's that it's perspective and gratitude and understanding that like a lot of the stuff that we go through is way better than like a lot of our worst moments will be way better than a lot of people's best moments in their life. Like we don't live in the Middle East. We are not in a war torn country. Like
Yeah.
we are extremely, extremely lucky um to be in the place that we are.
Hmm.
And I think, and to be honest, I really do think that could be the solution for a lot of people's problems. You know, I think I'm sure a lot of people are guilty of just being like, oh, my life's shit. Like I'm in a bit of a rut, whatever. Like, but like that change in perspective, man, it's very powerful. Like it really is.
Yeah. Fuck, that was a bit deep, man. That
Yeah,
actually got a bit deeper than than I thought.
I was throughout the episode. We have this title here, "Getting Lucky," and I was like, I wonder if we actually even keep that as "Getting Lucky." Like we might have to
We'll change it.
broaden it up
Yeah.
or something. Like,
Yeah, no, but again, I don't know. I just fucking got a bit passionate about that. I was just like, "Fuck, man! Some people actually need to hear that shit."
yeah, definitely. Oh,
like you
100%,
know,
100%. Yeah,
some like sometimes people need a kind of a kick up the arse, and like we talked about, it's like, yeah, maybe they need to kick up the arse, maybe they need an arm around the shoulder, maybe they just need to just be shown where they're at, and like again, different people have different ways of understanding information, or whatever. But sometimes someone just needs to fucking say to you straight, like say like, look, man, this is where you're at, and if you continue to do this, this is what you're going to go down to. But there's this other path that you could go on, and I'm not saying I'm at the fucking end of the path, but I'm on this path and I'm enjoying this path more than you're enjoying your path. So fucking come over and join me, like, you know.
mm-hmm.
So it's like that's kind of where, and again, we probably do need to change the title of this episode. I don't even know what we're going to change it, but
No,
I think that was pretty deep, man.
yeah, I really enjoyed that. Actually, that was kind of one of my more enjoyable ones. I actually really liked recording that. No matter, like,
Yeah,
although we went completely off topic there for the large majority of the podcast, I actually really enjoyed
yeah.
it. So yeah, thanks.
Maybe we need to do them a bit more, just fucking off the dome, like.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
But and then I'll get like 4 views. But again, it's more so for us that we're
Yeah,
doing this.
yeah. Episode
Um,
21, we're officially in the top whatever percent of podcasts of all time. So yeah,
yeah, something
you're
like
now listening to podcast
that.
royalty, guys.
We're gonna start charging for these episodes
Yeah,
as well. Now we are
yeah,
premium subscription. Now, yeah, fucking episode 21. That's mad. When you look back, like whatever it was, nearly a year ago now, like when we started it, to even think that we'd get this far, it's
yeah,
mad.
yeah. To
Yeah,
have kept it up, it's
yeah.
good going. Like, and I'm excited to to continue it and keep going with it. You know.
I do feel like there is a lot of opportunity for more growth, and
Hmm.
for growth in terms of numbers, yes, but I think more so in terms of like impact,
Yeah,
and in terms of like the people that you touch. It's like I do feel like numbers is kind of just a reflection of the impact, because someone could listen and not take anything from it, but if you're getting listens and you're getting comments and people are swiping up and talking or whatever, it's like, oh, I listened to this episode and I learned this. It's like that's the real impact
yeah.
that we want to see. And a couple of new guests hopefully coming on soon, sorting stuff out like that, and fucking keep it rolling.
Love it.